Boy is like a melody that haunts you night and day. You may see him again, and then he'll come back again. A pretty boy is just like a melody. Wackadoo, wackadoo. A hair-lip midget went to the stables to buy a horse, and the trainer took him to a horse that was fairly small, and he said, "Here's a horse you might like." And the midget said, "Oh," he said, "he's so pretty." He said, "Could you do me a favor?" He said, "I'd like to see your ears." So the guy picks the midget up, and he said, "Oh, the pretty ears, clean, clean. I love her ears." He puts the midget down. He said, "Could I see her eyes?" And the guy said, "Sure." And he picks the midget up, and he said, "Oh, clean, what, crystal clear eyes." He said, "You got beautiful eyes." He said, "Thank you." He puts them down. And he said, "Can I see your teeth?" And the guy said, "Sure." And he picks the midget up, and he opens it. "Oh," he said, "look at the teeth, they're clean, white." He said, "Pretty, oh, pretty mouth, thank you." And he puts the midget down. He says, "One last thing," he said, "could I see your twat?" The guy walks the midget behind the horse and lifts him up and sticks his head up there and puts him down. And the midget goes, he said, "I'll rephrase that question." He said, "Could I see your gallop?" A lot of you probably don't remember Roy Rogers and Dale Evans, but they were the 50s king and queen of cowboy history. And for his birthday, Dale got Roy a pair of beautiful, beautiful boots that were diamond studded and autographed and everything else. And Roy was out on Trigger. Trigger was Roy's horse, a beautiful Palomino. And he was out on Trigger, and he came home and left his boots on the porch. He had some mud on them. And the next morning he got up and his boots were gone. And he got just so PO'd and upset because his beautiful brand new boots were missing. So he got on Trigger and he drove around in the west, and behind a cactus he spotted a puma who was chewing his new boots, just eating just tearing them apart. And Dale heard, because saw from a distance Trigger coming back with a puma behind. Roy shot the puma, of course, and the boots over his saddle horn, and they were a mess. They were chewed and ruined. And Dale saw him from afar and closer and closer, and he got to the porch and he got off Trigger, and Dale looked at the puma and looked at the boots and looked at me, at Roy, and she said, "Pardon me, Roy, is that the cat that chewed your new shoes?" There was a little funeral home that was run by an old guy and his young assistant, and a 5-car crash was all the fatalities. All 8 of them were brought to his funeral home to be embalmed. And he and his young assistant started, and they got through 7 of them, and the guy was so tired. And he said to his assistant, he said, "You handle this last embalming, I'm going to bed." And the guy said, "I got you, boss." So the guy went upstairs, and he started working on the last corpse, and they had him on the table, and he spread his legs and took the embalming fluid and was going to stick it in there. And he looked, and there was a cork. And he said, "What in the world is a cork doing in there?" And he pulled out the cork with his gloves on, and he heard his, "Blue moon, you saw me standing up." And he pushed the cork in, stopped. And he pulled it out, and "Alone, without a dream in my heart, and he put it in. And he pulled it out. "Love of my own, wah wah." and he put it back in. Pull it out. Wah wah, blue moon, and he put it back in. He ran upstairs to the top floor. Said, "You got it. You won't believe what's going on down in the basement." And the guy put his robe on, his slippers, and came down. He said, "You realize it's 1 o'clock in the morning?" And the guy said, "At any time, you're not going to believe this." And they got down to the basement, and he pulled it. He said, "Now watch." And he had the thing, and the thing lay on his stomach. And he reached in, "Blue moon, you knew just what I was there for." And he put it in. And he pulled it out. "You heard me praying a prayer for someone I really..." And he put it back in. "Could care for, wah wah, wah wah." And he put it back in. And the guy said, "Do you mean to tell me that you woke me up at 1 o'clock in the morning to listen to some asshole sing Blue Moon?" And what's the difference between people in Dubai and people in Abu Dhabi?
What?
People in Dubai don't like the Flintstones. People in Abu Dhabi do. I don't know if I can do it since I've had my
didn't want to tell you I didn't get it.
I know you didn't get it. You didn't get my old rum story either.
Oh, that's true.
What's the rum what story?
No, the rum.
What rhymes with rum?
I don't know. We'll have to talk later. I like rum. Rum's a
This is a story. This is a story that has several characters. The lovely Cleopatra's barge is sailing down the Nile, and the helms, the helmsman. The second character is the first oarsman. There's the second oarsman. There's the third oarsman.
What's the candle behind you?
That's a candle.
And then in the back of the boat's the lovely Cleopatra.
Oh.
A ship approaches, Your Highness. 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 Whose ship? Whose ship? Whose ship? Whose ship? Whose ship? It's the ship of Mark Antony, Your Highness. Mark Antony's ship. Mark Antony's ship. Mark Antony's ship.
Write this down.
Bring out the drums.
Yeah, that's the one.
Bring out the drums. Bring out the drums. What drums? What drums? What drums? What drums? The condoms, you idiot!
I don't think we're allowed back in yacht club
Say goodnight, Lloyd. Never forget.
Don't worry.
Ever.
I remember the look on your father's face. And he thought it was funny. He thought it was funny. He goes down to the yacht club and sees the commodore of the yacht club, and it's Johnny Kemper, of all people. And he said, me want my red son to join the yacht club. And he said, "Oh, Chief, you've already been in Chicago." He's a buddy of mine, the commodore there. And in Detroit, he's a buddy of mine. He said, they've given you an unqualified no to join the yacht club. Why do you insist on humiliating yourself like this? And the chief said, "Me always wanted to see my red son in the sail set." George Seringer had an old an old Navy joke of his, and he said it was a one-liner, and it was the guy was in a ship on a Navy boat, and he's looking to borrow some oars from a ship that came over, and he said, "Hey mate, lend me your oars." And the other guy says, "These ain't me oars, mate. This is me wife and me mother-in-law." In World War II, probably about 1942, 43, when there were blackouts and air warnings and all sorts of problems in the United States, Eleanor came into the White House one day and she said, "Franklin, do you notice anything different about me today?" And he said, "Eleanor, for Christ's sake, I'm running a war. What is it? You have a new dress?" And she said, "No." And he said, "You have a new hairdo?" And she said, "No." And he said, "Look, I'm busy. What is it?" And she said, "Franklin," she said, "I'm wearing a new gas mask." He said, "Good, I'm going to go upstairs." And he lived on the third floor of the funeral home. He said, "I'm going to bed." And he said, "I'm going down for the count and I'm not going to wake up. But if anything happens, important, really important, you come wake me up." He said, "I got you." So he takes the 14th cadaver and puts him on his stomach and on the stainless steel table. And he takes the embalming needle and the thing, and he spreads the guy's legs, and he starts to insert the embalming syringe, and there's a cork. And he said, that's odd. And he gingerly reached in with his hand, and it went, "Blue moon, you saw me standing," and he put the cork back in. And he pulled it out, and "Alone, without a dream in my heart, and he put the cork back in. And he pulled it out, and he said, "Alone, wah, 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 boom," and he put it back in again. He pulled it, "Moon, you knew just what I was," and he put it back in. He does this and he can't believe it. He ran up to the third floor to the funeral director's quarters. He rapped on the door, and the guy put his bathrobe and his slippers on. He said, "What is it?"
Martha.
He said, I can't describe what I just have seen and heard." He said, "You got to come down and see for yourself." And the guy said, "Well, okay." And he goes down to the basement of the laboratory, and he said, "Now what is it?" And the guy said, he said, "Watch this." And then he's got the cadaver lying there, and he said, "Watch." And the guy looks, and he said, "And then there suddenly appeared and he put it back in. "For me, the only one my arms could ever," and he puts it back in. And, "Hold, I heard somebody whisper, 'Please adore me.' And when I looked at the moon, it turns it," he puts it back in. "Gold blue," and he puts it back in. And a funeral director looked at him. He said, "You mean to tell me that you woke me up at 1:30 in the morning to listen to some asshole sing Blue Moon?" Guy goes to the doctor and he says, "I don't know what's wrong with me, doc, but there's something." And he has an examination, and the doctor comes out of the room and shaking his head, and he said, "I have just seen 3 of the worst cases of syphilis, diarrhea, and gonorrhea that any human being has ever had." He said, "We're going to put you in the hospital right away." And he said, "We're going to put you on a steady diet of pancakes and flounder." And the guy shook his head and he said, "Pancakes and flounder? What kind of diet is that?" And the doctor said, "It's not a diet. It's the only thing we're going to be able to slide under your door." Okay, this is a short one. This is the short one for tonight. A young lady goes for her audition for a show, and she says next, and she comes out on stage and she sings, "You say potatoes and I say potatoes. You say tomatoes, I say tomatoes." The guy producer said, "Cut, cut, cut. That's quite enough, Miss Lovey." And she says, "Levy." She got it. She said, well, thank you, Mary. She said, and Dirty Johnny had his hand up. And he, oh, here you go, here you go. And she said, Johnny, I hate to ask, but I'm going to ask. You got a 3-syllable word? He said, yes, teacher, it's urinate. And she said, urinate. 3 syllables. She said, you can try using it in a sentence, but be careful. And he said, I will, teacher. And she said, what's your word? Or what's your sentence? Or what's your sentence? And he said, urinate. Teacher, urinate. If you had tits, you'd be a 10. In San Francisco, there was a Chinaman by the name of Chan who had a teak shop. Beautiful hand-carved teaks worth millions. And one night he was in the store late and he heard something at the front door, some little noise, and he looked around and this little boy came in and barefoot, just walked in, looked around, scratched his head a couple times, and grabbed 2 of Chan's best teaks, the best teaks he had. And he was heading toward the door when Chan jumped from behind the door in the back, and he opened it up, and this kid was startled, just startled, standing there. And Chan said, "Hey, where you go, barefoot boy with teaks of Chan?" Who said, "Do not fire till you see the whites of their eyes"? That, of course, was Admiral Perry in the famous Battle of Lake Erie. Who said, "We have not yet begun to fight"? That was Nathan Hale. No, it wasn't Nathan Hale. It was who said, "I regret, but I have but one life to give for my country." That was Nathan Hale. And who said, "What the fuck was that?" That was the mayor of Hiroshima. Okay, this is a trilogy of answers. And what are the questions? The first answer is 9W. What's the question? Do you spell your name with a V here, Wagner? 9W. Get it? My recent joke about the fellows flying to Hawaii, and he's sitting next to a well-dressed Hawaiian, first class, and he nodded to him and said, "I have a question for you, sir." And he said, "Yes." And he said, "Do you pronounce it Hawaii or Hawaii?" I've always been curious. And the guy said, "Well, actually, you pronounce it Hawaii." And the guy said, "Well, thank you very much." And the guy said, "You're welcome." A chimpanzee swings from a tree. You ought to hear him serenade. His pretty little monkey maid, swinging from a vine. A honeymoon be planning soon. Oh, wow. Be true, my monkey doodle-doo way down in J-U-N-G jungle town. Monday we'll hold her by the tiger. Tuesday I will hold her by the bear. Wednesday I hold her by the zebra. Thursday I will hold her by Harry. Friday I will hold her by the zebra, swinging on a little rings of brass. Saturday I hold her by the best place of all. That's the time I hold her by her zazoo. That's the time I hold her by her ankle. Wow. Your love, it's a melody played in the air. It's a one black feeling.